Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Friday, December 19th, 2025, and today we are talking about reclaiming a pseudo junkyard for farming, the overwhelming possibility of having land, and it is Feedback Friday, so let's do it. All right, happy Friday, everyone. I hope you have your weekend plans all fleshed out. Many of you will be traveling for the holidays, so wishing you all safe travels. It's been raining the last 24 hours or so, but I did manage to get the blueberries slightly mulched with some old wood chips before it really started, raining yesterday. So that feels like a success. Slowly cleaning up, getting the farm back to the point that I can mess it up again next year. So how about you all? How are things going where you are? Let us know, or better yet, never hesitate to send us your 20-second farm video clips to farmermike@notillgrowers.com. Love to see those farms and gardens out there, whether you're in the winter, in the spring, or whatever you happen to be, wherever you are in the world. You can wait to the spring if you want, but I know some of you are growing stuff over the winter or working on interesting projects. Maybe you're building a new chicken coop. Shout it out. We'd love to see and or hear about it. Anyway, it is Friday, which means Feedback Friday, where we explore what you all were saying about this week's topics. On Monday, we talked a lot about fertilizers and human scale farming. On the topic of origins of rock minerals at the Burnhams, added, quote, rock phosphate, wonderful stuff if you need it, but Central Florida's phosphate mines have caused significant environmental degradation, including polluting groundwaters. So even though it's quote unquote listed OMRI, please don't use any more than absolutely necessary. The high price of phosphorus tends to limit use, but even that doesn't count the total quote-unquote cost. Thanks, Jesse, and I do appreciate that one simply cannot produce enough banana peels to cover the required phos. Haha, keep them coming, please. End quote. And yeah, this is something that has always been a challenge for me with mineralizing the soil, is that those minerals have to come from somewhere. And oftentimes there is pollution involved, habitat degradation, etc. So if you're wondering why I'm not as enthusiastic about rock minerals as other people in this space, that's largely it. A fertility program that degrades the natural resources of someone else isn't a fertility program. So if it ever feels like I'm pushing things like compost and or, like grass and grain meals and that sort of stuff more than other folks, that's largely the reason. There are times when some amount of mining may be the only option to rebalance the soil, I guess. And I don't claim to be perfect around here. I mean, we still use soil mixed with peat moss, for instance. But in general, my success on the land shouldn't have a cost to other people's land. That's just not ecological farming, and I think we have to be conscious of it and strive to do better. On Tuesday, we talked about mulching for spring crops, fitting brassicas in the rotation, and community in the business plan. On the community stuff, at Rocket Goose wrote, quote, we always help our neighboring farm with bringing the sheep in from a big area. It takes all day, but it's a laugh, and we finish with a big pot of soup together. Last March, I got our tractor stuck on the beach on an incoming tide, and our neighbor immediately came to help rescue it. Community resilience is the way forward. We're better together, end quote. Love that. A little, country currency, or what we call, reciprocity. Great to see that in action. On the brassica front, at Richard Roadcap wrote, quote, fall brassicas grow much better, will overwinter with less insect pressure, end quote. So I have never really tried overwintering brassicas, although I think I kind of intended to do that this year and just completely forgot about it. But anyway, I don't really have any experience with it, save for like sprouting broccolis. But for our Patreon member down there in Arkansas, maybe that is worth a try, to help open up your rotations a little bit. Something you could do over the winter that will have immediate spring production. On Wednesday, we were joined by Mikey and Jay of Five Tails Farm, and that was such a fun chat. Lots of great comments there. At John Rozier, for example, wrote, quote, this is another fine example of how teamwork comes together and helps to make things happen. You can go a lot further when you have multiple people working together in various roles for a common good. This was another helpful interview, end quote. And I agree. That's the synergy thing, which also resonated with other commenters like at Bliston or B Liston, who wrote, quote, always such great insight from these guys. I love that 1 + 1 + 1 = 10 analogy. Finding that synergy is so satisfying, however it may come about, end quote. Yeah, I think the idea of 1 + 1 = 3, 1 + 1 + 1 = 10, this should be a driving force behind people wanting to work with other people. In other words, with the right company, you are more than just the sum of two when you team up with someone. Great stuff from both Jay and Mikey, as always. Loved that. Huge shouts to them for coming on every single month. It's so fun to see what they have going on their farm. Then on Thursday, we talked about how we clean our seeds, undersowing, and the intersection of gardening, kids, and sports. The sports/jujitsu segment seemed to really resonate. At Operhoof de Gleilen-Bizon, I probably nailed that one, wrote, quote, played football, soccer, as a kid, loved it. It provided a way to just be a kid and break outside the bubble, even though that bubble was/is comfortable in class. Connecting with kids from all backgrounds helped me a lot in life, end quote. I love that. And I've said this before, but as a child whose mother moved us around a lot, I was never in the same place for like more than a year. I went to something like 13 different schools. Sports was a critical part of my life. It gave me instant friends anywhere that I went. It gave me confidence. There is a reason I take extra time to coach in the spring and fall, even though I don't really have said time. I want to provide that opportunity for these kids and to just have fun and play and learn the sport that they can play and or watch almost anywhere in the world. It's amazing. And I also just personally think it's really important. Also, at Fuzzytail and at Jesse Turrets both appreciated the not punishing kids into goodness thing. And yeah, you punish kids when you just want them to stop or go away for your sake. Kids you want to actually help. You teach them, you support them, you love them. Great stuff as always this week, y'all. I never expect much listenership in December because, well, nothing is really going on, at least up here. But you all continue to amaze me and engage with the show, and you just absolutely rock. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, a land reclamation story involving a pseudo junkyard. Yeah, BRB. Today's episode is brought to you by Farmhand. Farmers who partnered with Farmhand say they grew an average of 63% this year because it's more than software. Farmhand is your business coach and assistant, helping to sell out, save time, and grow smarter with real data from real farms, shaping websites that convert, campaigns that sell, and fulfillment systems that run smoothly. Curious what that looks like? Meet the founder, Ari, at farmhand.partners/no-till and see the same insights and support the fastest growing farms rely on every week. That's farmhand.partners/no-till. Today's episode is also brought to you by Johnny's Selected Seeds. Johnny's Selected Seeds is a proud supporter of Growers Daily. At Johnny's, they do more than sell seeds. They grow them. They trial them to see how they perform on Johnny's research farm in Maine and across the U.S. and Canada. Only the best varieties are added to their catalog and website. When you need proven varieties you can count on and detailed guidance from seedling to harvest, consider Johnny's your trusted growing partner. JohnnySeeds.com. That's JohnnySeeds.com. All right, back to the show. If you, the listener or viewer, are enjoying this podcast, getting even a small amount of value from it, consider supporting our work over at patreon.com/no-till-growers. I will try to get to questions from everywhere the questions come in, but I will always get to your Patreon questions. Now, today's Patreon question comes to us from Patreon member Sarah, who writes, quote, "Hi, Jesse. My sister and I bought a 36-acre property in central New Hampshire with the intention to subdivide and split it between us. The property is a homestead from the 1780s and has excellent farmland, which has been out of production for decades. Unfortunately, the property essentially became a junkyard with old appliances, construction/farming equipment, and medical supplies, including at least 11 prosthetic legs, ? We've been cleaning it up over the last 2 years, and I'd like to get a garden started, but I'm worried about contamination from the junk over all the years. I'm getting the soil tested by the local university extension, which will test for all your standard nutrients, pH, organic matter, and heavy metals. We did a PFAS test of the old well, which showed there is some contamination. Do you have any suggestions for other contamination tests I should run aside from the ones I mentioned? Follow up, do you have any recommendations for cleaning up the soil? I was thinking of growing decorations and giant pumpkins for a few years so the plant material could hopefully absorb some contaminants and get disposed of at the end of the season," end quote. All right. Well, first, congrats on the new property. That's fun. Wishing you all the best of luck with that. So as to your questions about tests, to me, you have all the bases kind of covered there. It sounds like heavy metals and PFAS, especially in your area, are the big ones. I took a question recently that was very similar, so I'm going to take this one in a slightly different direction. If it were me, what would I do next to reclaim this property and soil? First, once the stuff is out of the way and the tests are done and you feel comfortable with the results, I would probably start work on building the gardens. And by work, I mean that I would look for the best compost I could afford and get some inoculated biochar as well and get all that worked into the soil, and not only, to enrich the soil, but neutralize any potentially hazardous residual contaminants. Then, if you feel like you could grow and sell that many decorative pumpkins, that's totally fine approach. I have no problem with that. And it's probably not going to return much monetarily, but maybe it breaks you even, or, maybe does a little bit better than that. But perhaps flowers would be a better use of that space if that's something you're interested in producing. And again, if it's something you feel like you can sell. Gourds and birdhouse gourds are nice as well. Long-lasting products one could grow and sell at fall markets. Same with potentially broom corn, loofahs, all that stuff. If it were me though, I would probably focus on flowers and cover crop any space I don't need. Flowers are going to have the largest return so long as you could sell them. They are beautiful, so that's nice. They also, as an underrated bonus of growing flowers, not only bring in beneficials, but help to build those beneficial populations locally for you when/if you do start, other sorts of production. It does assume you're not dealing with like any extreme heavy metals, in which case you might have to look into remediation through cover cropping and then disposing of the above ground biomass until the toxicity levels have declined. But if not, then you're in a good spot to just, start work on the soil and land and make it something special. Very cool, and wishing you all the best of luck on this project. Let us know, listeners, what else you all might consider in this situation. Otherwise, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I will overwhelm you with land. Or it will I don't know, there will be some overwhelming somewhere. BRB.
Today's episode is brought to you by FarmRaise. Still struggling with your balance sheet? Your lender's asking for a balance sheet and you're stuck with a spreadsheet mess or guessing your numbers? FarmRaise Tracks takes the stress out of farm finance. With one click, you can generate an accurate, up-to-date balance sheet that shows your assets, liabilities, and equity. No accounting degree required. You'll be ready for loan applications, tax season, or just a clearer picture of where your farm stands. Join thousands of farmers using Tracks to build stronger businesses. Get 20% off with code NOTIL20 at farmraise.com for the lifetime of your membership. All right, back to the show.
So in the conversation I had with Mikey and Jay on Wednesday, a topic came up that I've thought about and probably touched on before, but bears emphasizing. One of the hardest things about owning a property is just staying focused. The amount of possibility held in a single acre of land can be wholly overwhelming. You could, like grow veggies or run chickens or grow fruit or mushrooms or put up a barn for an event space or, start a nursery or more confoundingly, all of the above, like et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's hard to not look back at the Parisian market gardeners of the late 1800s and early 1900s who were growing veggies intensively on the surface, in the ground, but also many of them were, like cultivating mushrooms below ground in caves. Then they were growing all winter in the glass cold frames or with like cloches carefully placed over top of the veggies. Every square inch was maximized because they only had so much land on which to grow. The limitation, in their case, land, as it so often does, became the driving force of their creativity and ingenuity and ability to produce epic tons of food on a small space. But back to the point of this, that no matter how much land you have, the potential there can be overwhelming. And it can be hard to focus on one or two projects or a single business when it could be so many businesses. Like, let's say you bought 8 acres or something somewhere and you really only need like a half acre or so of veggie production. That leaves you a lot of land and you will feel the pull to do something with it because it could be so many things. It could have, some small animals on it like chickens. It could have orchards. It could have cabins, for Airbnbs or whatever. But like we talked about on Wednesday, it's easy for that possibility to actually create more problems for you. It's easy for an idea like starting an orchard or running a hen operation to become almost an additional business for you. And running one business is really hard. Running multiple businesses is not a good idea. So unless your main business is humming along perfectly and you have all the kinks worked out, you wouldn't want to add to that in general. So sure, you could plant some trees and not have to worry about those for 5 years, but you could also look at the possibility as an opportunity to offer some land to someone else and limit the space that you work on. You want animals there. Why not invite someone else to start their business on that land? You get the benefits of the animals and maybe some meat and or eggs or whatever, and they have the land they need to get their business started. In fact, you could even plant trees there and let someone else start their, let's say, broiler operation between the rows while they grow, thus maximizing that space but reducing your role. To me, there's a never-ending amount of possibility in a piece of land, but perhaps the possibility that gets most overlooked is the possibility that other people without land could use, that other people without land would love to help you, achieve. Stepping back to the Parisian market gardeners, maybe limiting yourself is actually what your land needs too. It needs you to focus on the space you've opened up and maximize the fire out of it and it alone, and then maybe bring someone else to do the same, sort of thing to the rest of it in a way that may also benefit you. A composter, for instance, an orchardist, a livestock farmer. Anyway, I think it's just interesting to explore this idea of possibility because it feels feels never ending and it can easily absorb your focus or simply distract you. So perhaps that overwhelming sense of possibility, much like community engagement, should also be factored into the farm business plan. How are you going to stay focused on what you're doing amongst all the possibility? And also, how are you going to maximize your land? It's something I think about a lot and with our weird little plot here. And I have to be clear here, I have not come up with a perfect solution. But part of that, I think, is that I didn't prepare myself for this level of possibility on this particular farm. Us getting back to growing better in the space that we have rather than growing out again is part of me trying to, kind of like live this idea a little bit more. So anyway, hopefully I've prepared you a bit to be aware of the pull of possibility. I think that's maybe not the most complete thought, but it is the thought that will conclude this Friday and week. Let us know how and if that resonates at all with you all. Otherwise, don't forget, No Till Growers is now officially a nonprofit 501c3, so donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. You can learn more about how to do that in the show notes. Like if you get that in before the end of the year, then you can get that end of the year tax break to write off on your taxes in a few months, which is super fun. Can't wait for tax season. Please make sure to like and subscribe and or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That's an easy way to help us out as well. Enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors. And if you'd ever like to sponsor this show, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at notillgrowers.com. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music, Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing, and my wife Hannah for everything in the world. Also shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can hear. Pick up a hat or a copy of my book, The Living Soil Handbook, at notillgrowers.com to support our work. It is probably too late to get those to you by Christmas, but we will get it to the post office as fast as we can. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/notillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, or you sign up in the waning days of December, you get a shout out on the show. So big shout outs today to James Webb, Kyle Richardville, Patrick Weaver, Alex and Oliver, Bill King, Chris Yates, and Ian at Grindstone Farms. Big shouts to you all. You all just absolutely help keep this thing rolling. Ian at Grindstone Farms all the way back from 2022. So shouts to you, Ian. All right, so our hero this week is a middle school biology teacher, Mr. Lakes, who is obsessed with plants, but who loses his job when the county decides to close the school from poor attendance and all the things, leaving all of his hard work, like landscaping there and the 12 years of plant collection for his classroom, all of that in limbo. So Mr. Lakes, has an idea. He wants to buy the school and turn it into a state arboretum. The entire school in their small county in arboretum, but he knows this will just not get the financial support it needs. So it's got to be more than just an arboretum. It's got to be, have more purposes than just something where somebody can just go look at plants. So he puts out a call. The call basically goes like this: needed someone who wants to start a bar, needed someone who wants to start a restaurant, needed someone who wants to start a retail clothing store, and needed other people with other business ideas. And in a matter of years, the school becomes the Arboretum. Get it? EAT is good with puns. He's, biology teacher and hence a nerd and hence, good with puns. Anyway, it's a place where you can go, eat, shop, have a drink, and be amongst a long, sprawling collection of some of the state's coolest and rarest plants in your old middle school. And if you want, Mr. Lakes will also give you a garden tour with a little side biology class. That's fun. Good for Mr. Lakes. I'm happy for him. All right. Thanks for watching and or listening. I will see you on Monday. Be a good time. All right. Bye.